All right, let's get into this. We're about to explore a pretty incredible story of biological engineering. We're talking about the shared, super intricate origin of two systems we usually think of as totally separate, the urinary and the genital systems. It's an amazing journey from one single blueprint to two completely different final designs. So right off the bat, that seems like a weird question, doesn't it? I mean, one system is all about waste removal and the other is for reproduction. But what if I told you they're not just neighbors? What if they actually come from the exact same starting material? Let's dig in and see how that's even possible. So yeah, to answer that question, we have to go way back to the very beginning. Functionally, these two systems are worlds apart. But when you look at how they develop, their stories are completely woven together. They literally start out as one. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. This isn't some casual connection we're talking about. No, it's a deep, fundamental link that's written into our anatomy from the earliest moments we start to develop. And this right here is ground zero, the mesodermal ridge. You can think of it like a specialized construction site in the tiny, developing embryo. It's this one strip of tissue that's going to give rise to all the complex parts for both systems. Okay, so first, let's see how this ridge builds our urinary system. What's so cool about this is that nature doesn't just nail it on the first try. To build our kidneys, it actually goes through this fascinating process of creating and then scrapping two different prototypes before it lands on the final design. So you get draft number one, the pronephros. It's like a quick pencil sketch that shows up and then, poof, it's gone. Then comes the mesonephros, a much more functional version that actually works for a little while before it too mostly disappears. And finally, the metanephros starts to form. This is the keeper. This is the one that's going to become our permanent kidneys. Now, here's the kicker. This final version, the one that sticks around, isn't built from a single piece. It's more like an assembly project. You've got two completely separate components that have to grow towards each other, find each other, and connect perfectly to make one working organ. And here are the two teams doing the building. On one side, you've got the ureteric bud. Its job is to build all the plumbing, the pipes and drainage tubes. On the other side, you've got the metanephric mesoderm, and it's responsible for building all the millions of tiny little filters. And get this, neither one can do its job without the other. And in this picture, you can really see that plumbing taking shape. That ureteric bud just grows and branches again, kind of like a tree, creating this huge network of collecting ducts that'll eventually drain all the fluid from the kidney. And here's the other half of that incredible story. You're seeing the filtering units, which are called nephrons, forming from that other piece of tissue. Then they have to hook up perfectly to the ends of those pipes we just saw. It's this connection that creates the pathway for urine to get from the filter to the drain. It's just an amazing act of biological teamwork. And the sheer scale of this whole project is just wow. By the time we're born, this process has created about 1 million of these microscopic filtering units in each kidney. And that's it. We don't make any more for the rest of our lives. Okay, so that's the filtration plant, built from one part of that original ridge. But now, let's switch gears and talk about the other system that's built from that exact same starting material, the genital system. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting, because for a while, the developmental script is totally one size fits all. Just think about that for a second. For about a month and a half, every single embryo, doesn't matter if it's genetically male, XY, or female, XX, is building the exact same foundational setup. This is what's known as the indifferent stage. So what's in this universal starter kit? Well, first, you get an indifferent gonad. It has the potential to become either a testis or an ovary. And crucially, every embryo builds 2 full sets of ducts. The Wolffian ducts, which are the precursor to male internal plumbing, and the Mullerian ducts, which are the precursor to the female structures. Everybody starts out with both sets of parts. So, the big question is, if everyone starts with the same exact equipment, what decides the final outcome? Well, it all comes down to a single, really powerful genetic instruction that basically flips a switch and sends development down one of 2 very different roads. And here it is, the SRY gene. This little bit of code is located on the Y chromosome, and its job is simple but absolutely game-changing. It tells the body to make something called the testes determining factor. The presence or absence of this one single gene is the ultimate fork in the road. And check this out, the logic is actually super simple. If an embryo has a Y chromosome, then the SRY gene is present. It gets switched on, and that indifferent gonad gets the signal, okay, time to become a testis. But if there's no Y chromosome, there's no SRY gene. In its absence, the gonad automatically starts developing into an ovary. And from that one switch, everything else follows. Once that testis forms, it starts pumping out hormones. Testosterone tells the male, or Wolffian duct system to stick around and develop. And another hormone actively tells the female, Mullerian, ducts to get lost. In the female path, with no SRY and no testis, you don't get those hormones. So the unused male ducts just wither away, which allows the female duct system to thrive and develop. And here's just the technical description of what's happening on a microscopic level. Those medullary cords they mention, they're basically the internal tissue of that early gonad. The SRY gene tells those cords to bulk up and become the core of the testis. Without that signal, those exact same cords just sort of regress and fade away. So let's bring this all full circle. We've seen how nature uses a common starting block and then a series of genetic switches and hormonal signals to construct two incredibly different but perfectly functional systems. What's so amazing is that it's not just about building things up. It's also about selectively tearing things down. Both pathways depend on dismantling the parts that aren't needed for that specific design. It's an incredibly efficient, really elegant way to get two totally different results from just one blueprint. And in the end, this whole complex, microscopic dance of genes and cells is what builds us. This story of this common origin, of this fork in the road, is written right into the anatomy of every single one of us, a silent reminder of our shared biological blueprint. It really makes you wonder, right? If our body's plumbing and our reproductive systems share this incredibly deep common history, what other surprising connections, what other ancient stories are just waiting to be discovered, hidden in plain sight inside our own bodies?